Good morning. This is me talking to John Patterson, and I sent an email to him 2 days ago. Can you see that? 2 days ago. It was sent at 2:18 in the afternoon on the 28th of March. And there's the list of the recipients.
Just a minute, George, you're breaking up.
Yeah, that's because they're quaking in their boots. So I was asked, as a very impolite request from the policewoman who threw me out the Kelso office the other day, to send it as an email with the evidence that I wanted to report, and then the police would do something about it. So let me read the list of recipients for this vitally important email, but in case my batteries run out, I will first read you the title of the evidence that I've presented to them. Sites google.com, Prof George Lee's Revelations / complicity and its implications in British law and Nuremberg. Okay, there are pictures and footage of the woman chucking me out as soon as I mention the links to the Prince's Trust and the local papers, the Southern Reporter. And all of what I've mentioned before are massive crimes involving the asset stripping of British policemen and the war crimes of Chilcot, of Rifkind, and of all of the British Cabinet, including Michael Moore, and the reluctance of Michael Moore and Chris Williamson in Derby North, who's Gordon's Bowden MP, to communicate with their constituents, which is a breach of the British Constitution. Can you hear the intel noise now?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Okay, so the email was sent to, as instructed when they chucked me out of the cop shop, which John is totally privy to. He understands that. He says that she was guilty of assault. I do not want to go the violent route. I want to make friends with everybody in the Cabinet Office now that David Cameron is making conciliatory gestures when they ask him to take the world to war. Yeah, I do not want to make enemies of anybody, but the news that I'm trying to reveal will be outed because of this video and because of the blockage. If John Patterson does not have it, then Gmail, who are run like McAfee from Woolwich in London as part of our intel services, run by Prime Minister Cameron and the Chipping Norton set, all we have to keep doing is to expose them to the horrible truth that they're running our country from profit. The Treasury is totally dissociated from democratic funding now, as is the Bank of England, and the names that were on the recipient lists were, as instructed, inquiries at Lothian Borders Police, that's lbp.pnn.police.uk. So if you put that in your search engine, John, inquiries at lbp.pnn.police.uk, and look at the last two emails you got from me. Inquiries at lbp lowercase .pnn.police.uk. That's where the ballistic blonde works for. That's the whole of the Borders constituency. Since I started to become a fraud researcher, they've changed the name of the superintendent in Hawick at least 3 times, maybe 4 times, because of the mail that was sent to Michael Moore and them at the same time. It's about the asset stripping of the British Treasury and the global banking crash in 2008. Michael Moore is a batard. He is a chartered accountant, and he's been chucked out of the Cabinet for shame. Well, he will not let me meet him.
I can tell you now, George, there's nothing in my inbox.
Okay, let me just read the names, and then when I get to you, I'm in the CC field, and some of the prominent news people I will mention, but my friends who are innocent and are the victims of all of this, yeah, because the ordinary people in the UK and all across the G8 are being stolen from by their governments. Okay, so it went to the Lothian Borders Police, it went to Jedburgh Sheriff and Justice of the Peace Court. It went to Miss Patricia Tom, because she's a common recipient of all of these, because the only way I can get any news out on law enforcement is in my totally unjustified divorce case, and they are now complicit in war crimes and the cover-up of all of that at Jedburgh Sheriff Court and in all of the border solicitors. It went to John Lamont MSP, it went to Alex Salmond MSP, it went to Nicholas Sturgeon MSP, it went to the Scottish Justice Minister, which is Cabinet Secretary for Justice at scotland.gsi.gov.uk. It went to George Lees so that he knows that it has been delivered to the most important people who are taking on law enforcement globally, because all of it is totally twisted for profit. Office at Whitney Conservatives, which is the Prime Minister's contact address, and when I precipitated that meeting between the Queen and the Cabinet in, I think it was 2012, that was the address that was used. Yeah. And I cited in the email that we made my correspondence with the Queen and the Queen's response that she, although she meets Cameron once a week, she can't constitutionally cannot interfere with her own government's crimes. Then you've got Haig William at parliament.uk. He's the only one that confirmed receipt as far as I'm aware. Yeah. Then you've got Barrosso's, you remember me talking about Barrosso's private secretary,
Yep,
and he's
yep.
so that's Pia.Arlenkyled Hansen with a hyphen in the middle, and she's at ec.europa.eu. They get all of my emails. The next one went to the governor for Iraq when Tony Blair was brutalising Iraq. His email address is rory.stewart.mp@parliament.uk, and he launches the cover-up of the new councillor at the Scottish Borders Council who have imposed a lifelong gagging order on me, like Sheriff Drummond, at that bastardly little court that is defending all of these war crimes and all of the crimes against the people, and they fail to understand why the law courts are closing for lack of funds. Okay, you've got a man you've heard of and you are very proud of, Field McConnell. That's fieldmcc@yahoo.com. James Fetzer, yeah, and then you've got Michael Moore at parliament.uk, Oxford Literary Festival, Neil Hughes, who's a friend of mine and is in another constituency, and he is a very decent chap, was school chum of mine. Yeah, okay. Zed Williams at Jed, that's the Jedburgh Rugby Club, yeah, who get G4S to police the rugby tournaments now because Michael Ancram is the local Lord. Yeah. And all of these people in the Conservative Party. Michael Ancram is also a director at Conservative Clubs UK. Okay, then you've got a woman who was the Dean's Secretary at the University of Otago. Then you've got Andrew Carrington Hitchcock, who you know well as an honest man and a very informed researcher on the world owners for, since they took over, you know, since they moved out of Eastern Europe, and when at that stage they were still called the Buyers and then they became the Rothschilds. That's Andrew Carrington Hitchcock, the insightful researcher who I'm a friend of on Facebook. And your theory that the Gmails to the important freedom fighters in our world are being blocked, we could very easily find out whether or not Andrew has received that email.
Cut out again, George.
Yeah.
You've got...
So,
broke up completely.
did you hear me telling you anything about Andrew Carrington Hitchcock?
You were just starting to tell me,
Yeah.
and you broke up.
So can you get in touch with Andrew on Facebook and ask him if he received this email?
Okay.
Yeah?
Yeah. Yep.
Kenny McCaskill, already resigned. My wife's brother, Stephen Hancock's, that is Stephen Andrew Hancock's, OBE, and look up the VJL Lee's, the VJ Lee's name, the Cahill name, the SAS on YouTube, and you will see how that man links into terribly corrupted laundering systems. That's my wife's brother and her employer when the first writ was issued. Are you still there?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Scottish Minister at scotland.gsi.gov.uk. Bill Scott, the fraudster in the civil service in Scotland. I'll give you his full address in case anybody has lost their granny into a privately owned care home that at £600 a month, because he's the ones that issues the drug licences in Scotland to the fraudsters and encourages the doctors to get 40% of their their salary by giving too many drugs on behalf of the pharma profiteers. The next man I've been interviewed with by, and he's a German, he's a very civilized chap, and he also has a Facebook page. His name is Ferdinand von Prodzinski, and he's the rector at Robert Gordon's University, yeah, where they sell off the real estate that is worth a lot of money, and that is Aberdeen, where John Wood runs the BP Trust Fund with total lack of any implications on the taxpayers' front. Yeah, every trust, including the BBC Trust, is a total tax-free zone, and it is a scandal. Which takes me to the CC field. The first name in that field is John Patterson, reefboy60@hotmail.com. Yeah, I hope you've got nothing to hide, John. It openly declares on my website and every video that we make that I welcome contacts from honest people.
Yeah.
And that's why none of these people have replied. And if you're telling me that you've never received it, that is a damning indictment on what the Prime Minister and Andy Coulson and Rebecca Brooks do. Yeah, so the next name is John Humphreys Internet. I will not tell you what his email address is, because he has actually responded to me. And what he was upset about was that in his local parish somebody had stolen the red lead off his church roof, and he wanted to talk to me about that.
You've gone completely, George. You're breaking up now, you've gone.
Yeah, so I'm talking about John can you hear that?
Yeah, you're back again.
I'm talking about John Humphreys at the BBC. That's Baron John Humphreys. His wife is a baroness. They're all fraudsters. John Humphreys has actually replied to my emails and my Google chat. Then when he realised that I'm on to everything they do, he dropped out. But when he replied, what he wanted to talk about was the theft of the lead from his local church roof. This is the world's mafias run out of the BBC systems. Next name Evan Davis, next name James Naughty, next name's James Reynolds, next name Mike Woolridge, next name Sarah Montague of the Dukes of Buccleuch fame. You remember we talked about her?
Yeah.
John Sweeney, Steve Herman, Today at BBC, The Five in America, and sorry, I've lost access to it. So have you heard of the Five? That is where two of the five presenters were the primary administrators, the private secretaries for George Bush and his predecessor. I can't remember who was in power, but their names are Bob Beckles and Dana Perino, and I write to them for the whole of the last 5 years, and they are decent enough to communicate with me on Facebook, like Noam Chomsky. But you know what I told you about Noam Chomsky, don't you? Yeah. The government runs his Facebook page as a propaganda event, and Noam was honest enough to declare that to me before, in emails through the Gmail system, before he learned that I learned that he was working for Ariana Huffington, the millionairess. Yeah, with links to the woman that runs the Alaskan constituency. Yeah, Sarah Palin, who's a cover for Michael Palin the Joker in all of the jokes at the world's funding expense of the Monty Python team, and all of the jokes that they tell about the false religions are what are actually going to bring the false religions to their knees, like the Mr. Bean war crimes joke and the London Olympics. Yeah. Okay, next one is Joan Bakewell. We mentioned her in the video. And the others are the Able Danger people. I will not tell you what their names are in case they get hit on, but you can ask them all. Oh no, I will. I'll tell you them, because they're freedom fighters and they're proud.
That's where I started, George.
Okay, you don't think that Fields Friends, which is what I call the grouping of these people, will be intimidated by me making a video like this on the anti-treason?
They're very much into the Bible and all this stuff.
Okay, so it's the names are Anita B, Anita Lightning, Atlanta, B Hollingsworth, Bucky Badger, Mark Carter, one of the most informed experts on banking frauds that I've ever talked to or corresponded with on Gmail. He's amazing, but they will not allow them to make videos with me and you, because it's only it's only the leaders in the chat room with the pastor outside, which makes me ever so nervous, as you know. Then you've got Wolfnet, Chris Hook, chrisbeforeitsnews.com, David Hawkins, Hawks Cafe, Fob Analysts, Garth Faded, Ginger Cookie, Houston at FBI.gov, Jack Maco, Jean Rice, Joy Steele, the woman that went ballistic when I talked about the defrauding through the Toronto Stock Exchange at my commentary and analysis, like yours, on religion and Christianity. She was quite abusive, actually. Her name is Joy Steele. She's barely out of her teenage years, and she comes from Toronto the week we were talking about the Toronto Stock Exchange, and she uses a lot blasphemic terms and the F word. Jay Watson at Navy Mill. These are the forces in the UK. Craig Peterson, oh no, these are still the forces in the US. Mike Robinson, Patrick Hedemark, Phoenix at batford.gov. That's the UK Air Force. Order Schools. P.O. Malley at wildblue.net. Rag754, Tim Hagiwara. Oh no, sorry, all of those must still be the able danger people, because Tim is a very informed person.
Tim is absolutely sweet.
Yeah, he's a really important analyst, and he keeps records of everything that comes at him, which is why it's vitally important why you ask him whether or not he's received this email on the Nuremberg title. Yeah? Okay, then the next one goes to cosford.raf.mod.uk. That's the Ministry of Defence. They need to know what they're fighting for. Okay, the next one is also to an airbase at the mod.uk. The next one is Alconbury. The next one is Cranwell. The next one is the Lincolnshire Airfields.gov.uk. Then you've got BSD RAF SU, I forget what that is, Boscombe Down. Have you heard of that?
Yes.
So this is the British military. All of them received this with the British political leadership team, and only William Hague, who's been backed into a corner. And when I mentioned his sister and his wife working for the Prince's Trust, like the editor of the Southern Reporter, that's when I got chucked out, and she forcibly in the police station tried to switch off my recording. Do you remember that?
She's going to be out next, I'll tell you that.
Do you? No, I don't want to. They're persecuting.
Yeah, but she's suppressing information.
Yeah, but she's just trying to keep her job like the rest of them. Only you and me have the courage to do the religion, the politics, the financial services frauds, and their massive crimes in other people's countries, which become genocide and then is signed off as witnessed by all of the witnesses in my hometown that we talked about in those 2 videos we made in the last couple of days. But you're unaware of the email I sent to all of these people, because they're able to select who gets blocked and who's allowed to get it through. And you know that on Skype we get interrupted all the time, and it's run by the same organisations. And Gordon and I have discussed that openly, and when I referred you to the CEO of the Lothian and Borders Police, yeah, can you remember who it was? John Smith. You remember the John Smith joke? The most.
John Smith.
Yeah. So Patricia Tom and co-solicitors is also pictured with John Smith as her CEO in the email that you did not receive. And I've got a reference. I posted my reference to David Cameron, asking him if I could meet him. Yeah. So have we gone far enough down the recipient list? I've got a whole host of Stathan RAF, Valley RAF, loads and loads of MUDs, MODs, Coningsbury RAF, Linton House RAF, Scampton RAF, Marham RAF, Northolt RAF. Have you heard of almost all of those?
Yes, all of them.
Yeah, this is the RAF where Gordon Bowden works, and I've explained to you that RAF is a joke about Raphael the Jewish angel, and every one of the warmongers thinks that's ever so funny. as they begin to put people in the fire pans after they've shaved their heads. And I've told you that is a joke about numbers in the Old Testament.
Yes,
yeah. The whole fucking thing is a genocide for profit, and for them it is a massive belly laugh. And they think it's really funny to bang somebody up in the marital courts because they're accused of bad behaviours, but they're only accused of that for a few weeks. But when they actually read the writ that they forwarded to Michael Moore and all of the people, and they acknowledge that has been lodged in Jedburgh Sheriff Court, then they are complicit in war crimes and massive financial crimes against the British people. Which is why I send my mails to the RAF and their schools, because the schools now have to beg for funding in the front hall of Lord Sainsbury's really well funded supermarket, and what they're begging for is the funding that should come from the central bank that is now owned by the field marshals and the people that run NATO's armies in pinstripes, from Chipping Norton, in the false news media sector through Lizzie Murdoch and their links to Rupert in the pan-continental fraud, and Rupert links in through the Geelong School in Australia to the very well-funded Prince Charles, who's immune from prosecution, which is why the copper threw me out at just the right time, so that those links to the free press could not be revealed. That's her loyalty to the local paper that report the every proceedings in the law courts at Jedburgh, and they are going to be really ashamed at their role in life, because they are now run and policed by a private security firm. They will not give me the name of that person or that company. It's not G4S, but G4S get the contract to bang up the innocents, the teenagers that do a binge drinking number and crash their car into a hedge. Nobody gets injured, but they get sent to jail for it in a G4S van. Yeah, and you've seen the G4S van parked outside the Arnott Manderson Associates, the Arnott Manderson Advocates Company, in Parliament Square in Edinburgh, which is an epicentre of fraud, right opposite St Giles, where the war dead are laughed at.
George, toxic debt, G4S, which was 1.3 billion, has now just gone up to 1.6 billion.
John, you do not understand the issues. You're talking about toxic debt in the billions. You were stunned when I told you about the $1 trillion holdings that the big banks actually have access to. So the Lloyd's banking group toxic debt pool, which meant that the people at the RBS, where the computer failed when I was doing my petitioning, you remember that bit?
Yeah.
And the Bank of Scotland openly declared now the Bank of Scotland is enslaved in the Lloyd's Banking Group toxic debt pool. Lord Sainsbury's supermarket, where the teachers have to beg for funding for their desks and their computers, was sold into that toxic debt pool in 2002. When I'm the only professor at Otago University who has not had their inaugural lecture recorded and produced for the free world to observe, and the only reason for that was that I was hitting on Lord Sainsbury as someone who sparked the obesity epidemic as the science minister and the owner of a massive food retailer. That was why they gagged me in New Zealand, and that was why I was chucked out in disgrace, along with the man who wanted to research the Agent Orange issues. It's an ever so difficult concept to grasp now, the free world concept and the democracy fraud concept. It is massive, which is why no one will respond to my MPs. You remember how in the early days of my divorce case, my wife's solicitor was obliged to respond. She now knows the danger of confirming receipt, because the last one she confirmed was receipt of the whole of my website. Yeah, and that was the grounds for my wife divorcing me for bad behaviours. Okay, so Miss Patricia Tom uses the John Smith joke. He's her non-limited. She is open to defamation cases and being litigated against because she's a non-limited company with John Smith as her CEO. I forgot to mention that in the last video, but her picture with the Lothian and Borders Police picture as the primary recipients of this email is sharing that joke about the frauds and the capacity of the Law Society operatives all over Scotland not to pay a penny in tax. And when I looked at the video on Michael Moore and the Westminster Foundation, and its links to JP Soros, as the policewoman instructed me to do, it's now posted on that web page that I cited, and it's what the woman said to me is, how can you justify what you're asking me to report as a crime in Scotland? And I said, you asked me to send an email, so that's why I sent the email.
Broken up again.
Yeah. So do you remember the woman, as she chucked me out saying, send me an email? She wanted me out of her hair so she could get back to the crossword upstairs and a cup of coffee. Yeah. Or maybe some bootleg stuff from the people in London that still run that and are on the Privy Council. Yeah, that's the Bromsteins from Canada. They're on the Privy Council.
Yeah. These are the ones that are into the booze, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. The Bromsteins on the Privy Council with Lord Conrad Black, the criminal in the Free Press.
Yep.
He no longer comes to the House of Lords because people like you and me have got them in a fearful corner. Yeah. He was convicted, served maybe a 2-month jail sentence in a very elite place like the tank commander in Egypt. But then, when they have a democratic election in Egypt and they get that new man in, he goes missing. So we send the woman with the IQ of Baroness, what's her name, that went on to look for Morsi?
Cathy Ashton.
Yeah, from the St Albans school, like the St Albans school in America, where the Rockefellers go with the Bushes before they start translating the Christian Bible into the Talmud. And I'm accused of bad behaviours. That's why I send it to the RAF and the military. But the sad bit is that the military and the RAF at Halton, where my children were born, with heavily armed police on the gates, everybody in the birthing chamber is a fraudsters in the Rothschilds' interlocks now. That's all of the people that came to my wedding, and I've got the director numbers for the vicar that married us in Tring. That's the Rothschilds' epicentre. Yeah, RAF Halton is in it, right next door to their massive mansions, and this is what the UK forces fight for, and then we go to Argentina to win the election. Yeah, and I'm not guilty of bad behaviours, and if I lose my wife and half of my home, then I come at them with the massive defamation cases, which is why I'm asking you to sign that you have received this email that went to all of the world leaders, the European people and Barroso's people. Barroso has already bailed out months and months ago when I revealed to you that he was trained at Georgetown in America. Do you remember that discussion?
Yes.
Everything we talk about precipitates the resignations, which is why I was really fearful about you leaving me, and I thought you were saying that you had contracted a cancer and that you were...
No, George, a friend of mine.
Alright, okay.
That later.
So what I've sent you is on Skype is a jocular reply, but some of it is not funny at all. You know, the stuff about Stefan Koch and all that stuff that is a scandal. I'm meeting those people on the pavements now. They're just paid to be diversions from the financial crimes of our government and the second chamber, and all of that impacts negatively on the free world because they get brutalised to cover up all of the crimes of Lord Markham of Recraine. And he's in the story that I told you the other day about being interlocked to the Douglas homes, to Melrose and Porteous, and the man McCall, who's their director, who interlocks all of them to the scams of the people that run the boiler rooms in Finchley. And that is the linkage of Naismith. He's also mentioned by Gordon, or he's also on the listings of the interlocks to Michael Moore, George Soros and JP Morgan. It's massive, and I've done everything I can to obey the ballistic blonde policewoman who said to put it in writing in an email, which is why I need you to confirm receipt, or that it's gone missing as an international and national security to cover the fraud. Shall we stop there? It's brief.
How long before you process this video? Because this needs to go out soon.
Let me just click on the link and we'll give it some colour. Okay, I'll click on that link that I've posted there. So it's Prof George Lee's Revelations / complicity and its implications in British law. And just so we can make a colourful video and show them that we have the corporate documents, I will show them the pictures. There's the Kelso police station with all of the local witness statements that I was going to try and get the truth out, that within 5 minutes of chatting I could make them absolutely aware of. That's Malcolm Rifkin, G4S, arms to Iraq, Lothian 50, 1,000 Ponzi shells, Lothian 50, all of the links to Zurich, Florida, Mexico, Cavendish Square in London. That's only 4 of the Ponzi's. Those are the first 4 we examined. Then there's the statement that Michael Moore and Chris Williamson in Derby will refuse to communicate with us, and I've posted it at the bottom. There's the corporate documents on this Trident nuclear weapons extinction threat, which she did not understand in the police uniform, and she did not be able to relate to anything until I mentioned their loyalty to the local paper, which is just a slave to the Prince's Trust and the totally illegitimate Crown Office that runs the law courts, which this time has not confirmed receipt of the mail, like Miss Tom, the Canadian profiteer who has asset stripped everything as a former council employee. Then everything ends up in the private sector. That includes the care homes that she runs, and the I told you about my referrals to domestic violence and the Citizens Advice Bureau. The people that work there are volunteers. She's on the board. Yeah, that's a referral to domestic violence and homelessness before they began to realise that I'm guilty of nothing and that I will not admit my guilt and justify an illegitimate divorce hearing by rolling over and dying. When I said I might be prepared to roll over and die, when I exposed the in-laws of my wife as profiteers using exactly the same laundering methods as JP Morgan, George Soros and Michael Moore, and the Brighton secretaries that you've to visit very soon. Yeah. Yeah, it's all a massive scandal. Yeah, and the Arnott Manderson bit is covered on that web page, and all of the videos that we made, including the one that we made the other day. I've still got to upload that. So, and there's the references to the Foreign Secretary Theresa May and everything that we discussed. There's the pandas. There's Stephen House, the likely millionaire. There's Sheriff Kevin Drummond. And in the videos I've released just in the last couple of days, they have confirmed at the Jedburgh Sheriff Court that would not confirm receipt of my email. Yeah. For the reasons that you're now beginning to understand deeply. Kevin Drummond has imposed a lifelong gagging order on me talking to Sheriff John Halley, and you know all of the reasons for a Patterson with 1 P taking the place of that person in the law courts and in my persecution. Can you see how clever it is now, and how it takes really clever analysts like you and me to put together all of the religious strands, all of the geopolitical strands, all of the university scandals that cast our own children into a 50,000 debt pool, and they can never have their own homes because of the linkages to the NN Rothschild Bank and NATO's field marshals and admirals, all mentioned at the bottom of the web page. That I've not yet put. I'm going to put on it. Oh yes, I have. So there's a video called the Westminster Foundation for Democracy Limited, and it's got the links to JP Morgan and George Soros. It's me and Gordon talking about Alexander James McCall, who's a director at Melrose and Porteous, who, when I asked them, can you defend me in my marital case, and is the presence of Alexander James McCall and his money laundering links, which I cited my website for, to is this a conflict of interest? They immediately wrote back to me and said yes, they gave me their money back, and the money that they charged to bang up the innocents or to dispossess them of half of their homes is £250 an hour. I'm a professor and I've put several months' work into defending myself in this case. I get remunerated in no way until I take them into litigation, and I want to take them into the European jurisdiction, because everything that they have done is stealing from innocent countries.
Listen, Lou Collins is live on radio now with Gordon. Do you want to join her?
We'd better end this video first, but yes, I can.
Yeah, you must do it now. This was 22 minutes ago, George.
Oh, but have I got an invitation from them? Because remember, Gordon's not speaking to me.
Well, let me speak, please. Lou Collins is just telling me now that Gordon is on air live and she wants you to join them. This is it, George.
Okay, John, if you're having trouble finding my email, go to that web page that I've just cited.
Okay, George, I can do that.
My email is published on the bottom of the page.
I know, George, but listen to me. You have got an opportunity of going on live and broadcasting this now with Gordon.
No, I'm quite happy to do the broadcast. This video will do the job. Please look at the bottom of the website and look at all of the search terms, and then...
Oh, for Christ's sakes, George. What you're telling me now...
What you're telling me is that you did not receive the email I've cited.
George, I'm not bothered about that. You've got an opportunity of going live worldwide as we speak.
John, I just want you to witness the fact and send me an email that you received everything that the world leaders refused to accept receipt of. That was my original request. I forgot that I have now posted the email on my web page. But your name in the CC field does not come up. You get Patricia Tom, John Lamont MSP, Alex Salmon, Nicola Sturgeon, Cabinet Secretary. If you can politely send me to profgeorgelees@gmail.com.uk a considered reply that you have received it and you understand...
So you're going to resend that now, because I haven't got it in my inbox box, George. But Lou Collins is live with Gordon Bowden, and you've got an invite to go on the show now and tell the whole world, George.
But they're talking about something that they've arranged in advance. I don't want to bust that up.
I'm not talking about stuff. You can tell them now what you're telling me, George. Why don't you want to go on there?
Well, I've got an invitation, and what you're
She's giving you an invitation. I'm speaking to her now.
Right. Okay, I'll stop this video. Can you please look at the website?
Yes, George, I can do that afterwards, but this is live, George. You can go on live now. Okay,
all I need from you is confirmation.
You've told me that, George, several times.
So can you say that you will respond in a constructive way to my request whether you received the email?
I haven't received it, George. How many times do I have to tell you?
Right, okay, I'm going to send it again. Put them on. I've got the microphone sitting here.
Right, hang on. Don't go away.
Forward. Okay. So as we talk, yeah, I'm going to send you the email again. What email address would you prefer me to use?
Reefboy.
So to John Patterson, reefboy60@hotmail.com. Okay, and I'll now hit the shit. Send button. Okay, that's online. It's in the interview. When you receive it, can you confirm receipt? If you don't receive it, can you let me know? It's going now.
Okay.
Sending.
It should be here in a few seconds.
Yeah, it's gone now.
I've just got it.
Okay, so you can now politely reply to me that you're in receipt of that, you understand the website and all of the massive implications of the war crimes and the profiteering.
Now, should I reply to you or to everybody on this list?
If you did that, it would be really a potent weapon to let them see that they cannot any longer cover this up, that we're beginning to chatter about it.
I'm going to reply to all. And I'm going to do that now.
Okay, good lad, John. Okay, so put me on to Miss Collins and Gordon.
Right, she's just, hang on a George, she's just sending me the link. And you'll be on live and you can tell the whole world this.
Okay, shall I switch off my little tape recorder now?
Yes, please.
So it's really important that people witness things and that when we make an accusation that we're bold enough to declare it and let several people see the truth. That's why I took my letter to the police station after I had gotten ordinary people to witness the magnitude of the crimes and the killing of all of those innocents in Iraq. And that's why Tony Blair resigned. Yeah, it's not a coincidence. Who are you telling me has resigned today?
Tony Blair has asked the Queen. David Cameron has asked the Queen to dissolve Parliament.
Oh yeah. Can you see it? We don't need a bloody revolution. All we need to do is keep talking about what they've done to democracy and the Treasury and the Bank of England. It's a scandal, and everybody knows how simple it is, and that's why I'm telling you that Andrew Carrington Hitchcock is on this list. We need to get him more modernised and talking about the director numbers that I have hanging around my neck, and Gordon does. And the linkages to Naismith and the money laundering in Scotland and Finchley Road are massive.
George.
Right, are you putting me on? I'm going to stop this video. Okay?
Okay, George, and I'm going to have to speak to you when you